Hi there, and welcome to another episode. Today, we have a very interesting guest. And he's interesting in a way that I really don't know how to introduce him because he's such an interesting person that I don't even know where this conversation is going to go, but I cannot wait to have a chat. So, today we have Tim Elliott here with us. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Lenka. Hello. How are you?
So Tim has 20 plus years of experience running creative agencies. He's a marketer, and that's how we've actually met. We've met at marketing conferences where he was attending and speaking and supporting. So that's what he does a lot in his business, in supporting clients. But also he focuses a lot more these days on education and impact through enterprise. But the thing I really like about him is he'd rather be just outside, put work aside and marketing and business and all the things, just spend time outside. And I know all I see on his Instagram stories is just trail running and outdoor activities. And he's also a podcaster where he explores holistic benefits of being an outsider. So there's a lot we can dive into today. And, you know, I don't know where to even start, but I will start by saying again, hi, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's always a tricky question when I have. There's a real phrase that explains what I am. It's called multiple potentialities officially, and that's what I have. Multiple potentialities. I'm also a qualified breathwork instructor and mindfulness teacher, and a climate reality leader. I do some climate stuff. Like, we won't do the whole list because it's like super confusing otherwise.
But I also know that, you are a thinker. I didn't want to say think like a thought leader, but you are a person who thinks differently and ponders things and comes up with different ideas and perspectives. So just, saying that you're just a creative or just a marketer or just an entrepreneur would definitely be an understatement because the stories that I heard from you, the podcast I listened with you, always you're just bringing in different ideas on all sorts of things. And that's why I was like, let's bring you in and see what is Tim's idea on, bringing more life into one's life. That's the mission of our podcast. So I will probably kick off with that question. So what is it that you do or you would recommend people to do to bring more life into their life?
That's a great question. I don't have an answer that's fully formed because I think it's an ongoing process. I'm a big advocate in like work life, Tim, and outsider life, Tim, like play life, Tim, um, of like experimentation and exploration and curiosity and stuff like that. I'm not very good of having a defined answer to anything, like or being comfortable with things like labels that are attached, as you've probably discovered through the description of what I do. Um, but I'm a big believer in those, yeah, that sort of tenet of life because I think not to go in at the deep end, but I think there's a lot of systems and structures in society in the world in which we live that are designed to keep us in the middle. And change happens at the edges, but not many people have the opportunity or confidence to knock around on the edges, to walk around, to teeter about on the edges a little bit. But that's the only place I feel like the most me in anything. So I can give you a real life example. Like an hour before this call, I found myself teaching the second of two sessions of CPD for teachers in Iraq. I wasn't in Iraq, I was on Teams, but they were in Iraq. Which is not something. I'm not a qualified teacher. I'm not qualified anything technically. But it was an interesting thing because I do a lot of work around like the future of work and skills gaps and how to optimize this human thing, and that leads into education quite a lot. So I'm happy going teach teachers in Iraq CPD. Yeah, let's do that. That'll be amazing. And then not and then go what is useful to teachers in Iraq and trying to discover and explore that world. And it always that's not true. Most of the time it works out because I think exploration and experimentation can seem a bit ad hoc to people, but if you do it intentionally, there's a lot of power and impact and stuff in there, and that's tend to where I spend my time doing.
It's so interesting because there's so much, you seem very comfortable in this undefined, change, not having clarity, not having structure, not having labels, not having restriction, just go with the flow, but it also requires, there's lots of listening that you need to be able to do. You have to kind of know what you know and know what you don't know and be comfortable to thread the line of this is what I know, this is what I think I know, this is what I think I don't know, and I know that there's something I definitely don't know.
Yeah. I think, however, I feel like I have total clarity. What I don't have is I'm clear about the experimentation and exploration. I don't know what the answer is until I've done the work a lot of times. But I feel super clear. I don't feel confused about that. But there's like everything I do is underpinned by the same stuff, for want of a nicer word, like the same thinking. I think you call it when I've done um purpose work with either individuals or entrepreneurs or companies and stuff like that. Like there's an element, a recipe of that called first principles, which are the unmovable truth at the center of everything you do. So you can change job titles, you can be in your family or at home, you can be like move to a different country. Stuff changes, right? Especially nowadays, I would say. Um, but these things are always true, right? They're the first principles of who you are, right? And I've been fortunate enough not to have a real job and be distinctly unemployable for quite a long time, um, which has just given me time and space to think about this stuff, like quick, because what else do you do with your time? Um, so I'm I've developed I've got kind of tools and recipes and methodologies and questions and things that help people and myself like unpack. I'm going to use the word the truth of the situation. And I know truth is subjective sort of thing. I don't mean scientific fact, but like like the honest kind of center of it, right? These first principles at the center of it. And when you get good at doing that sort of thing. And it's a bit like a practice. You don't like, there's not a qualification in it, I don't think. Like, there's definitely not what I've written because I haven't got that attention span, if I'm honest. But it's a practice, a bit like yoga, right? You never finish it. Like, you just get a little bit better every time you do it. And sometimes a little bit worse, but then you go forward again. Um, but these practices of doing that, you become kind of attuned to it. It becomes like riding a bike, like second nature. What do you call it? Like autopilot sort of thing. It's the way you think and do work, whatever work looks like for you. Like and I've developed these practices and this way of thinking that seems to be applicable to everything that people ask me to do. Like people don't ask me to decorate their houses or fix their electrics or do their accounts, not for me either. But so, I think if you put you keep having these conversations, you keep doing this kind of work, like, and it works out, then people keep asking you interesting things. Like if you were known for doing a particular good Instagram strategy, for example, which I'm not either, um, you will become known for being good at Instagram strategy. It's just that my known thing isn't very is labelless technically, but a bunch of people have got to a point by my 46th year on the earth of going, that's quite interesting. I'll ask Tim if he knows about it. I'll go, sure, or not, as the case may be.
And you kind of touched on it just now. My question, I started thinking, was like, where did it all start? Because if I look at, maybe your CV, maybe your LinkedIn profile, there seems to be some sort of a pattern to
Yeah.
start your career with, PR, marketing, and creativity, and podcasting, and entrepreneurship, and startup mentor facilitation. Those kind of things still could be almost considered like a traditional career path, some sort of a traditional progression, and to where you are right now, which is definitely not traditional, not possible to label and box in. So how did it start that you really started like evolving this like branch of the wealth of areas of curiosity and differences?
I think like I started life as a marketer, and I'm a big believer that, and I see this at universities I teaching as well. A lot of people end up in marketing because they don't know what else to do, or they're not particularly great at another thing. So you go, oh, people stuff, it's good. Let's do marketing. Um, which has definitely happened to me. I was not qualified in anything for, at least a decade of me doing it for money. Um, so everything comes from kind of marketing, and I started before mobile phones and before social media and stuff like that, when it was people and community and connection and being distinctive and memorable and different with your offer, which is 100% what you're trying to do now. There's just a lot more stuff going on in the marketing world. Now, I'm by no means still a practitioner of marketing. I say to people at workshops and talks, I'm in marketing AA. Like I still love marketing, but I don't touch it anymore, sort of thing. um, but the core stuff, right? The first principles of what I think brilliant, effective marketing is are still the core tenets of my life. Like when my day job work, the stuff I get, like work with companies for and educate on, like it's all based around creativity. But now I don't use creativity to help people sell more stuff. I use it to help people facilitate and catalyze positive change in their organization. So this might be sustainable change. There might be wanting to do more impact driven work. They might just have a bit of a rubbish culture and need some help, right? But creativity is, it's just a set of tools, right? It's a set of tools, a bit of understanding, a bit of knowledge, and the confidence to practice it. And I think you can use these things for good, right? For superpower, because creativity involves everything from thinking critically and solving problems and definition and quite specific, you know, accuracy tasks. It takes some deep thinking and deep work to idea generation and creativity and stuff, which is amazing. But then those two things are no good on that side of the creativity coin without the flip side of being able to communicate it concisely and clearly so other people can come with you and adopt your ideas, and collaboration, which is how well you play with others, because you can't make a difference, make an impact, make a change on your own. Do you know what I mean? You've got to play well with others, whether that's at work or home or sports team or whatever. But they're all creative skills, right? That's the whole package, and that's that underpins everything. Creativity is one of my first principles, along with being free to explore, which is just a permission, like giving myself permission to explore stuff. like new avenues and things. But there's a few in there that are interesting. But it all started with that marketing thing, right? It never goes away. You're a marketer in your belief system, right? You know how to understand and connect people and think creativity, and that hasn't gone away, I don't think.
What I'm understanding is that it's almost like you are reconnecting people to their humanness. You're reconnecting them to questioning, and as you said, it's being on the outskirts and not in the middle. So it's the automation of life, that you are helping people step off that sort of, that it's not even a roller coaster, because it's just like an escalator. You just keep going, and it's going on the outskirts where you start to, as you said, be curious, experiment, ask, think, just finding different ways, and reconnecting with yourself, whether you're in a business or as a business, whether you just a person. It's connecting with you, with who you are. And as you said, you take that with you with another job, another country. It's, you carry that with you, but it's reconnecting people with themselves, people with their humanness. That's sort of what I'm getting.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's humanity, whatever we can define that is at the center of everything I do. Like I used to be a practitioner, well, still I'm a practitioner of human-centered design way of thinking and doing work. Like one of my agencies was human-centered design driven. It just aligns with like how I think about stuff, which is useful to have a set of tools that confirm that. Um, but you're absolutely right. I think there's like I always try and unpack that, get people to see stuff from a different perspective and unpack that and find themselves like who they truly are and why should other people care. So for example, I have a question. I do some mentoring for people either on courses and separately. Um, but I had a question I asked a mentor a mentee a while ago that was interesting. Because I kept asking him like who he was. Like, so who are you? Like explain yourself. And it just came back with an answer, a label. Go, well, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, a golfer, I run a business. I'm like, that's just stuff. They're labels, right? Like, who are you? Like, when this stuff doesn't exist, when you're away from all of this stuff, like, who are you? Right? And it took like a real hard question to answer because we naturally get so much identity from our work we do, the labels, like we collect stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, and people go, "Oh yes, so I'm an accountant." I'm like, "You're an accountant? Oh no, what is that it?" Like, you can't be. No offense to accountants, super useful, but like that's not who you are. That's a thing that you do. Like, who are you as a human being? Like, not. Don't tell me the stuff that you do. I want to know who you are. Like, what's in this belief system at the center of you, right? And I think like it's just hard to get to. There's so much stuff nowadays. Like there's so many job opportunities. People move job more often than not now. There's so many skills. We're full of millions of pieces of information and learning opportunities that if learning opportunities are taken like podcasts and YouTube videos like you guys mentioned, that changes us a little bit because it should do, because that's what it's for, right? And like so we're in this state of like a collection, like a baggage, like a bunch of baggage that comes with it. And I think sometimes clarity and direction and impact and meaning and belonging and all these things that are super important to, I was going to say to be a happy human, but there's like thinking about happiness, but being a content human, um, like it's important, but like they're just surrounded by loads of baggage. Do you know
Well,
what I mean?
I think also it's we given labels. You go to school, or even as a kid, oh, don't be so lazy, don't be so. I mean, for me, it was you're so antisocial, you're just rude, and that was something that I grew up with, and it took me a long time to pick that apart. But I mean, how many times do you, as a child, then going to school, and then, you know, in your first workplace, you also, not only do we collect them and pick the labels up for ourselves, but we also given labels, and then these sort of define us, that when you get to your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it's, this is who I am. Like you said, I'm an accountant. I am, bless the poor accountants are getting attacked today.
Sorry.
I'm an
Sorry,
IT
accountants.
specialist. How's that? Let's go with something else. But it's this is who you defined as, and it's almost like when you meet somebody for the first time, it's not who are you, it's what do you do. This is a question that we ask somebody. We've just met somebody. We might ask, you know, what's your name, but it's normally what do you do. So it's not even, you know, who are you, or what is your name, or where are you from. It's what do you do, and then you take the conversation from there. So it's been ingrained in the way we interact with somebody else. It's right, I now know you're an accountant, so this is how I'm going to talk to you, or I know you do IT, so this is how I'm going to talk to you, instead of like, oh, so you're Tim, okay, so where are you from, Tim? What, how do you like to spend your day? You know, these random, I'm trying to think of these random questions, but instead it's, so what do you do? And this is the first question that confronts us.
Like so much. And it's not a bad question. It's quite interesting, but only in context. Like if you start with that, you've got nowhere else to go. And I as I said, I've spent many moons as a marketer, so I've been in many networking introductory sections where people go, what do you do? And I go, I'm a marketer, and they go, oh, and then they go away because nobody wants to speak to a marketer / insurance salesman / vet. I don't know. I'm just trying to not say accountant again. Like, and it's the wrong place to start. Like at networking, and in terms of like understanding, where shall I go? Understanding is the foundation of effectiveness, right? So every question that we ask helps us get further down the line of understanding, right? And it's okay to get a certain far down that line with a person and go, actually, this person's not for me, or I'm not super into it. It's okay. We're not for everybody. But if you don't seek out, and if you don't set out with the intention of seeking to understand somebody, then you're making judgment based on not all of the information, right? And job title is job title, like just a job title. But like there's other things around networking, like what brings you here today? Like, and they might go, well, it's my job. And I go, okay, well, fine. Well, what do you do? And it leads into further things, right? And go, well, like, have you been before, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But in theory, when we're at an event like Marketed Live that me and Lenka met at in the beginning, right? You could attend that conference for many reasons, right? Like you could to network with other people, to catch up with people you already know, like just because you're curious, because you want to learn stuff, because you're speaking, because you are forced to, like your boss has sent you for business development. Like there's loads of reasons to go to an opportunity to connect, like an event or a happening, right? So I think like curiosity is what should drive you. You should be intentionally curious about everything, like, and then it will worm its way into your brain like it has mine, and you will always be curious, and it will be tiring, and it will be all right because you can only communicate in questions. But you know, it's like I think people don't go deep enough, and we're all like amazing people, amazing humans, capable of extraordinary things, you know, like, and I think it would be a shame not to explore that or give somebody the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation, because small talk is just such a waste of time.
I agree with the small talk, and that's very much an introvert trait, and I I love that label in some ways, because I don't do small talk. I'm an introvert, so let's go deep straight away. Watch people freak out. But it is. I think there is almost this not idea, but this people have lost their curiosity. People have lost that wanting to be curious or having the energy to be curious, because it is tiring. It is. I think as humans, and Lenka, please feel free to correct me on all this, because this is more her bag. It's, as humans, we are more me, I, what, all about me and what I get. And it can be difficult sometimes to step out of that, and it's like, well, who are you, or what do you do, or can I ask, in yourself, you're not, don't need to go up somebody's, can I ask you 500 questions, is, can I, in your mind thinking, let me ask questions, let me find out about them, because then it's not all about me. And I think the curiosity is something that is almost becoming a lost art. And this is something where it's fantastic that you brought this back, is be curious, experiment, be more on the outskirts. So it's when you said that, one of the things I thought about is at airports. It's Heathrow Airport. You get off a flight, or you go into a flight, and have these wonderful, I don't know what they're called, these rolling floor. I don't know what they're called. And you can get on it, and you can literally just either stand still or just take a real slow pace, but you're still moving at a decent rate. Or you can go on the other side and march it or walk slowly, but you're doing it at your own pace. And it's so interesting how majority of people get onto these moving floors. And I love walking, because I see, who can I overtake? Can I keep up with them? Or why is that person just standing? You sort of see it in a different perspective. But it's when you mentioned curiosity and asking questions, it's like, get off that rolling floor thing and walk, because you see things differently. Sometimes you might walk faster, sometimes you might walk slower. Appreciate, after a 12-hour flight, the last thing you want to do is maybe be marching. But on the other hand, after a 12-hour flight, maybe that's when you do need to be moving. So it's almost like people get onto in their brains, onto this walking floor, and just stand, instead of looking around or asking questions or being curious or experimenting on an idea or a thought and seeing where that takes you. Because experimentation is not right or wrong. It's what working for you, what isn't working. Is this such a random thought that you're thinking, oh, what planet am I on? Let's reel it in, or let me see where this takes me. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. It's just trying to find different ways of looking at things.
Yeah. You said, I like this rolling floor analogy. There's a beautiful one in Geneva Airport, if anybody's ever been there. Like Swiss, obviously. So very good. But you said a thing earlier that I noted down in my mind that I quite liked. Like, it's not, life isn't so much a roller coaster, it's an escalator, right? And there's like, escalators are okay. They're useful. They're not exciting, I would say. They're not like interesting. There's nothing curious about an escalator. You stand at the bottom of one and don't go, oh, I wonder what will happen. Well, you just go in there. You're in there. Like it's, and I think that's a nice kind of visual image of, because I believe you can ask most people and go, would you like more excitement in your life, as an example? And people go, sure, like I like excitement. And you go, cool. Well, what are you willing to change to get to that excitement? Is where the hurdle comes off, and people go, change stuff. Not changing anything. I just like it. But people like it's same with sustainability. Like I can ask, I do a lot of sustainable work and go, would you like to be more sustainable, good for people and planet? And they go, yeah. And you go, what changing then? What are you willing to change? Change stuff. I'm not going to do any of that. But I believe these, like this curiosity thing, like is connected to that, because you need a level of curiosity in order to figure out it's like the first step of change. I might be wrong, but this is what's coming out my mouth currently. Um, who knows, right? But like curiosity is the first or an early step towards change, right? And we forget stuff like curiosity because the world is designed to make us conform and be the same. Like, because everything, if like we're all the same, if we have the same job for 45 years and we earn this much money, we can retire at this point and then wait for death for this long and then give it all to our kids. Amazing. So I do have kids and she will get stuff. Love you, kids. But like it's not like we forget stuff like curiosity. Like people like me get paid a bunch of money to teach other full adults with real jobs in this cycle of life, curiosity and creativity and how to communicate. Jesus, like they're like 50 years old. You should be able to communicate and tell you and understand what your story is and know like why and like a purpose behind things. Like you should have a purpose behind things. You like you're a fully grown adult. Like, but people lose these things because they're easily lost because they're the stuff that makes it hard to conform. Right. And I'm not saying we all shouldn't conform and be punks and rebels and break the laws and stuff like that, but we should push back a little bit. But curiosity in things can be not taught, but reminded, like remembered and practiced. Like you don't have to be curious all the time. Like you don't have to like my life and work and revenue streams will not suit everybody. And like I'm not here to preach that, right? But an element of curiosity, it's such a positive thing to have. Like my on my podcast, I interviewed a guy called Graham Watson, who's a good guy. He runs a creative agency, also trail runs. I won't turn this into a trail running podcast because that's a tangent that will go down for a while. But he said a real good quote on it, right? And it says, as you get older, your world gets smaller. And I was like, oh, this is honestly the first intelligent thing I've heard him say in a few years. So I was quite surprised, like in the nicest possible way. I love him, but like he doesn't usually come out with it is talking about running usually, though. So caveat to him, I'm sure he's smart. But like this, as you get older, your world gets smaller. Like there's less curiosity, right? There's less excitement. There's more things like security and commitment and responsibility, which are all amazing things. And you do like the flip side. There's a flip side to every coin. You need both, right? You can't be not responsible in your life because that's ridiculous. That's going to be a, a S show. I was going to swear then, but I won't. But so that you need both isms, but you do need both sides of the coin. You need to be curious. You need to be free to explore. You need space and time and stillness to remember who you are without all of these labels and jobs and roles you've got to play. Like, who are you without all of those? Like, is one of these foundational things that make you effective at all the other stuff. Like, you still have to go off and do your accountancy job and pick the kids up and do homeschooling and care for your elderly parents and like stuff. Like it's all important. This is not an either or situation, but curiosity and excitement and stillness and exploration of self is the foundation of that makes you effective in that stuff.
I love that. And I like that, you say that it should be encouraged. And I also think that what you're doing here, what we're trying to do, it's to give people permission, because somehow we do need someone else to give us the permission to do these things. Because yes, in our society, it's not something that is being encouraged as much. And as we grow up and become adults, these things definitely are not the priority and are not the things on, the university hit list to teach us and on our parents often, lists to make sure that they pass on and on our employers requests for our next role. So definitely, I'm so grateful that we have this conversation. We kind of can spread a bit more of the, encouragement and permission to people to just, think differently, go out there, explore, be curious, play, do whatever. Like, yes, of course, you're an adult, you have responsibilities, you need some sort of safety, but just have fun with life. Just see whatever comes in, whatever brings you joy, and kind of follow that trail of curiosity. And speaking of trail, I do want to touch a bit more on your passion for the outdoors and passion for trail running, and get into a bit of that rabbit hole, because it's an interesting thing as well for, not always, or at least when I think a couple of years back, even in marketing, even in business entrepreneurship and networking, we would not talk as much about our lives, and we would definitely not have so many people who would be obsessed with something else than their job. There will be marketers who are obsessed with marketing and specific aspects of marketing, but not necessarily so many marketers who would be vocal about their obsession with, I know people cycling, I know people, trail running, I know people doing all sorts of random shit. So what got you into trail running or this kind of an outdoors passion?
A good question. So I ran when I was young. When I was school age, I used to run for school. But when I was 18, I moved to Ibiza and went that route, which stopped the running, if I'm honest. And then I came back to the UK, not from Ibiza, but from Australia in 2007. So there's a lucky sabbatical of life, a life sabbatical. But I came back not a runner. Like I came back a marketer, weirdly. I came back a marketer and not a massively healthy one who liked networking, one who liked socializing. Like the social element of marketing is lovely. Like there's a lot of that to happen. And I like that sort of thing. And I like the networking, especially if they came with free food. Like I was not the, I still do, if I'm honest, I still would prefer those networking opportunities. But I was not in shape, I would say, and I'd lost connection with it, with that sort of thing. And in 2019, I worked as a CMO for an investment company. And it was great. Like it was swanky, it was moving people's money around. Like it didn't feel like real life, if I'm honest. But I left that job. Why did I leave that job? I don't know. We left that job anyway. And it was then I discovered, like, because I wanted to change. Like I didn't feel like me. Like I felt like I was playing this role, and as we've established, I'm not very good at that. So I wanted to reconnect, and it was part of a myriad of things. It wasn't one kind of trigger, right? I did an amazing ceremony called the Shifted Ceremony with Fieldwork based in Derbyshire that used native people's wisdoms to discover your purpose, and it's over a year. I did that, and I left like proper fancy employment, and I started getting more into, I'll say, spiritually things or nature connectedness that I didn't really have the language for it at that point. But part of that was I connected to some new interesting people in a new community around here. One of which is a guy called Matt Bagwell, who is a marvelous guy. He's been my coach and a breathwork instructor for a bit, but a good friend and a good runner. But he did a challenge called Run the Country Ultra for Calm, which is the campaign against living miserably. And I got in that community and was like, well, like I'm looking for people to run a little bit with me, all of it with me, whatever. And he did 21 ultra marathons in September, which is anything more than a marathon, so it's a lot. But I started running. I had a reason to run then, and then lockdown happened, which was super useful. I have to say, I'm one of those annoying people who kind of liked it, if I'm honest. I apologize for those who disagree with that statement, but I kind of liked it. But for real reasons that have been useful, like it's given me a chance to pause and find stillness and do a lot of thinking and change processes and behaviors in my life that doesn't happen when you're spending 3 hours a day on the M1. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was useful from that point, I'm saying. But I started running again from there, and by the end of the first year, I'd done 2 ultra marathons, and had just got like into it and into breath work and developed a yoga practice. And got a running coach and lost, I don't know, lost 4.5 stone and ran. I was pretty convinced for quite a long time that it was biologically and physically impossible for me to run for more than 60 minutes until I did. And then was like, oh, I didn't explode. Look at that. Weird. And and now, now it's the first thing in my calendar. It's the thing that makes me me, because I run, I've got some lovely running friends, but I run for the solitude of it, for the stillness, for the meditation, for the fact that you can't multitask. You've just got to move and breathe. Well, and not fall over, ideally, but that doesn't always go to plan. But like, I like the simplicity of it and the power of it, and it gives me that space in my day to connect and to ground to myself and nature and do difficult things. Like trail running is difficult because there's all sorts of stuff. There's big boggy puddles, there's roots, there's big hills, there's rocks. Like, it's designed to not make you good at running, trail running. But before that, I'd never done anything difficult, really. I've had some challenges in life and stuff, like my mum died when I was 18 and things like life stuff. But I'd never done anything difficult. Do you know what I mean? I'd never been at the edge of a perspective of going, I don't know, I physically don't know if I can do this. Because I like the other side. I liked sitting in a bar in a VIP lounge, and I liked being on a holiday. It's like there were, do you know what I mean? But now I teaching, like, it's become my biggest teacher. Right? It teaches me where my limits are and how to go past them, which is just useful in everything.
And that's exactly the point that I love that you made, is, that stepping out of our comfort zone and pushing through our limits really teaches us that we really don't know where our limits are. Just what you said, I always thought of myself as not a runner because I've never been the one to really like a physical activities at school and stuff. And then somehow I started running, and I'm like, well, actually, I can run because I have 2 feet that do work most of the time. So I can run. And there are people who don't even have 2 feet and they can run. Like, come on. Like, who says? And it really gets you to, like, yes, we're talking about, running and pushing our body physically, but it's really nice caveat to go back into like pushing ourselves like mentally and with our beliefs, because pretty much you had a belief that I'm not a runner, or I'm no longer a runner, and I definitely can't run more than 60 minutes. And look, anything is possible.
And it's, it goes back to something Natalie or alluded to when we were chatting with Natalie earlier about perspective, right? Like, it's helping people see stuff from a different perspective, from a new perspective, not even a new perspective, just a different one than that they're looking at. And like, trail running is, for me, is a vehicle that allows me to do that. Like, because physically, I will look at the world differently when I'm on top of a hill in the Peak District. I can just go, or at the bottom of a hill in the Peak District going, oh. Like, it's just a different perspective, right? And I've got an idea that was born from running and trail running and stuff like that integrates with work life, because everything is just life for me. I don't know. I say day job and not day job, but I do everything intentionally, not to sound like a douche, but like everything is intentional. So everything's work, everything's not work. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's an important thing. But the idea is that everything has a 50p perspective. So if you imagine a 50p, it's got a few sides. I don't know how many. I'll go say 6, maybe 7. But if you're faced with a situation, a challenge, let's say, or an opportunity, they're all the same sort of thing, right? Have a look at it from each side of the 50p. Like, take a different perspective. You can do it in a notebook. I've done it I like doing it in a notebook and going, okay, well, what's another perspective I can look at this at? And what's another perspective? Because you can do that from, I had the opportunity to run in Chamonix in the Alps where Mont Blanc lives. Mont Blanc lives? Don't know if that was the right language, but you know, where Mont Blanc is. And when you're faced with a mountain and you live in South Derbyshire, like, you need a few perspectives to go, am I going to go up there? But you might go, well, I might go that way, or I could go around this way, looks a bit better. If I go up there, I'm definitely going to die. So that, like, you know, there's a thing, like, mine is trail running, but giving yourself or discovering what it is, what mechanism, what tool, what thing, what practice you can do in your life that gives you another perspective on opportunities and challenges is important, because it's easy. A little, again, something Natalie said either, it's like with the escalator and the rolling floor stuff, like, it's easy to take the easy option. And I'm, you know, confident enough, and I have said in other things that like the lazy option, because it's easy, right? It's like when we're asking people to change sustainably, like yes, we want this thing, but you're not willing to do anything for it. It's kind of a bit like sustainability given to you is a bit lazy, right? Like, and it's more rewarding when you put in effort and you choose your difficult and you overcome stuff. And sometimes it's not as difficult as it seems. You just got to do something differently, or see it from a different perspective, or take one step forward. You know what I mean? But it's that perspective thing that starts everything good, like the curiosity, the progress, the forward momentum, the optimization of your life, like this humanity thing we started the conversation with, right? Like, starts from taking a new perspective of it. You've got to be able to push yourself, or push yourself. It sounds very American PT trainer guy, but not, you know, like, it's just see stuff from a different perspective. Understand there's 50p's worth of perspective. And if you don't know what they are, like, that's your first job, is to see stuff from a 50p perspective.
I think it goes back to kind of what I was thinking. You only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. And I remember since I was young, my uncle has showed me this kind of a metaphor of when you draw a circle on paper. That's your current worldview, that's what you know. And all the points on the line of the circle are the things you know you don't know. So then you learn about them, and then your circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So then the more you learn, obviously the more you know, but the more you know that you don't know, and the more you know that you will never fully know. And it can be very scary and overwhelming to realize how much you will never know and understand. But it's also very exciting and empowering to be like, I can do all of these little things, and I can go into rabbit hole here, and I can explore this little thing, and I can be all of those things. I don't have to be just one thing, and I don't have to be just a parent, you know, a professional, a runner. Like, I can be all of it, and I don't have to be like just 3 things. Like, I can be 10 and 20 and hundreds of other things, and not only the fact that I can be multiple things, but I don't have to spend my whole time being all of them. Like, I can be a runner for a couple of years and be like, well, maybe right now running is no longer serving me, so I can move and, you know, be a cyclist, or I can go hiking, or I can completely, you know, change the sports and go be creative and, you know, start pottery or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think, like, there's so much in that, like, being comfortable and confident to say you don't know when you don't know is a thing that is a relief. Like, it shows confidence, like, because we're designed to have the answer. Like, from school, people teach us to have an answer when we're asked a question. I see it in business. I'm sure you guys do all the time. When you ask a question, everybody's got an answer, and you go, "Well, that sounds like bollocks." Though, like, is it the actual answer? Like, so I'd rather go, I don't know. I've not thought about it before, and sometimes I don't even know what I think about a thing till somebody asks me. Like, I don't know. I've got like a very small capacity in here. Like, and some stuff comes in and some stuff leaves. Like sometimes, thinking out loud is a good skill, but it kind of links into work. Like, we had a phrase. I had a role for a period of time, a bit of lockdown COVID time with an American agency called the Spill Team, who are incredible. Like, smartest people, whatever. And everything, all the facilitation was done online. So it was useful for an English guy because I wasn't in Charlottesville. And then the world opened up and everything went back to in person. It wasn't easy to fit a £3,000 flight on the client's bill, which is fine. I understand. But they had a phrase in there, but like, of when you were in business meetings and sales pitches and people go, "Oh, well, what's the answer to a question?" We just go in and go, "I don't know," like, because we haven't done the work. The answer is the other side of the work. I know what work we have to do, but I don't know what the answer is because we haven't done the work. And people are like, "Well, we've had this consultant in and they've got a 10-point plan I'm like, bet they haven't, like, because I don't know the work." But that concept of not knowing and doing it anyway comes back to these first principles, this belief system, like knowing who you are and having confidence in that, I've done difficult things. I've done stuff I haven't done before, and it's still all right. I'm going to be confident with not knowing. That's why, I like say links back to the work thing and just doing the CPD for teachers in Iraq. Like, I've never done that before. I've never done anything with teachers. Like, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it or you don't know what the right answer is. Like, what I do know is how to facilitate learning and development stuff because I've done it all my life. Right. And I know how a lot about understanding being the foundation of effectiveness. So I just talked about my perspective on how to, use creativity and innovation in a school setting. It doesn't matter that they're in Iraq. Like, it doesn't matter that the teachers, doesn't matter that I'm not. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that curiosity. They were curious enough to ask me to do it, and I was curious enough to find out what I'd say when they asked me.
And I'm curious if there are any resources that you use to kind of inspire you, because obviously we are book geeks here, we are nerds here, and I know that our listeners often like, resources. Who doesn't like a good resource? But I'm curious, like, what it is in your world that you find inspiring, any podcast that would be your go-to, any books that kind of shifted your perspective? Because sometimes it's hard, like, it's all great to have a conversation like this, and for someone this could be enough. For them, this could be like, okay, let me do it my way. But there might be still some people like, okay, but give me a bit more specific. Like, give me a book that can take me one step further, or podcast or YouTube or something that can help me and guide me.
Yeah. There's so many. Like, I think the real answer that I'd give is, like, the curiosity drives you as an eternal student. Like, and just be curious about what other things can do. Because I've read most of the marketing books, but I've learned loads from stuff that isn't marketing books about marketing, right? So I think variety is the spot. Like, be curious in that world. But there are definitely some specifics that I think is amazing. I would go for, as a businessy type creative marketing innovation book. There's a business novel called Scramble by Marty Neumeyer, which is one of the books I've recommended the most, along with The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is based around one question. Stick with it though; it's not that boring. But that question is really good filter for everything in life. Those two are really good books. I love anything by Nancy Duarte in terms of communication. She's incredible. I would recommend Illuminate. I've used Illuminate and the Torchbearers Calling therein. I won't tell you about it. No spoilers. Buy the book. In so many different ways that even she's not meant to. It's just a beautiful thing to behold. Podcast wise, there are some epic ones. I'm a big fan of Planet Critical, which is about climate change, but Rachel Donald is a great host, like incredible, and there's a lot of kind of truth in there. There's another great podcast by Sarah Parsonage called The One Question, and she runs a conference and a newsletter is also good on there. But those two are great at making you think about things. I also take like a lot of inspiration from individuals. So even if you're not a trail runner, like check out Courtney Dauwalter, who is an American incredible, like superhuman. Like she's winning 250 mile races, like coming top three, including guys at these sort of like like honestly flabbergast me. But she's been interviewed on another one of my favorite podcasts, Rich Roll podcast, no end of times, and there's just like mindset stuff, like learning mindset stuff from people, like blows me away. Like how people get through challenges and think about stuff. I'm just super curious about. So anything that like people orientated. Jimmy Carr, believe it or not, and Russell Brand are very funny slash super smart. Like Google them, like because Jimmy Carr specifically is not the crass one-liner guy. Like blows me away how he thinks about stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think of something really interesting that'll. Do you know what? My favorite current resource and a thing I'm a bit addicted to on YouTube. There's a guy. Let me just bring it up on my phone called the Monarch Journal. So the Monarch Journals, right? And he's called Justin Monarch, and I think he's American Canadian, something like that. But he does these interesting angled outdoor YouTube videos about life, and I'm just addicted to them. I wish I was him. So check them out.
And of course, there's this podcast, Into Your Life.
There you go.
We
And
have
this
all
one.
sorts of
And
guests.
my podcast. Like all the podcasts.
But
See,
yes,
so much.
there is a lot. There's a lot of books. There's a lot of resources. There is so much, and this is sometimes why it's nice just to be guided. Because if you just go on to Google or Amazon or Spotify or wherever you get your stuff, and you just get reamed with stuff. So it's sometimes nice to just be pointed in a direction, and then it's up to you to take it further. It's up to you to go further. One of the things that I love watching, it is a pure waste of time. It for me it is. It's people camping in the snow. I'm fascinated
I quite like
by
that.
people camping in the snow on YouTube. That's what they do. They go, the minute it rains, they seem to haul out their tent and they go. And I find it really, really fascinating because it's looking at something in a totally different way. Is first of all, I'm not a camper. I put my hands up. No, glamping is about as camping as I will do.
Same.
I do
Yeah.
like my luxuries around me, hot water and electricity. But this fascinates me. Why would you get in your car when it's raining and go camping and put up a tent? Some of them are these tiny little Korean women with these massive tents. And you're like, what? But yeah, it's just about, I guess, the curiosity and the looking at things in a different perspective. You get to see some beautiful countryside, and you just I've picked up recipes from watching these camping shows. You know, it's like, oh, that looks good. Let me see if I can make it. Anyway, as I said, I do digress and ramble sometimes. But one of the things that you've really encouraged is about the curiosity, the experimentation. It's giving our listeners that sort of that first step. It's like, oh, let me see, where can I take this? What can I do? And you have given us a lot, and we really appreciate your time and your energy sharing this with us. But Lenka and I, we always like more. But one of the things we do always ask our guests is there a tip? Is there a gold nugget? Or is there something that you want to share with us that we haven't asked the question? And now's the time to utilize this space.
It's a good question. I think I'm going to keep on the curiosity tip, if I'm honest. And we've had the opportunity to say that, but I'm just going to reiterate that we are born curious. We're born knowing nothing. So we have curiosity within us. Like, we're curious beings. Like, everything we are and everything we're going to become is because of this curiosity. So make space for it in your life, whether it's 5 minutes a day, whether it's every Friday, whether you practice it every day. You'll be amazed at what the kind of humanity that comes out of it and what you discover about yourself and others if it's there. And
that is a pure gold nugget, that curiosity. And so thank you for sharing that and reiterating that. It's sometimes we do need to be reminded of things. So thank you very much for that. Now, if one of our listeners is thinking, you know what, I need to get into this guy's world, I need to connect with him, I want to know more about whatever it is, how would people connect with you?
I'm increasingly bad at social media, but like running and podcast world and outdoorsy stuff is on Instagram at Tim Elliott UK, and at Tim Elliott UK for LinkedIn for more worky stuff, although everything kind of infiltrates. But on both of those, you'll find a podcast which is called The Outsiders, which is a trail running podcast, not about trail running.
And all the links will be in the description so that our listeners can connect.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. This has been really fascinating. And obviously, this is something that we can spend hours talking about, and there's so much to peel. We've just skimmed the surface. We haven't even cracked the surface. We've just skimmed the surface. But this is what it's about. It's that first conversation. It's finding more, having that different perspective. It's having that curiosity is ways to find how to have more life in one's life through Tim's eyes, or
there you go.
Just different way of thinking about something or looking at something. So thank you so much. And thank you for sharing or giving the permission to be on the edges a little bit. It's okay. We won't fall off. We'll be all right. So thank you so much for sharing your time, for being here with us. And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Is it about the running? Is it about being curious? Are you inspired to be more curious and wanting to find out how you can bring curiosity into your life? Or is this something that you're thinking, hell, we don't know where you found this guy? But that's okay. And are you inspired to maybe just start thinking at things differently, trying to find a different perspective, and get that 50p coin? And if you don't know what a 50p coin looks like, just Google an image of it, you'll see. But get that 50p coin and just see, can you see something in a different perspective? We'd love to know your thoughts about curiosity, about looking at things in a different perspective, and finding ways to be a little bit on the edges and not so much in the middle. So share your thoughts with us. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.